Hello, everybody. My name is Bernadette Smith, CEO of Equality Institute, and I want to welcome you to Five Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly LinkedIn Live show in which we bring you good vibes to DEI. That's good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also a little bit of corporate social responsibility thrown in there as well, as you'll learn in today's episode. What I have found is that there's a lot of negative stories out there about things that are going wrong when it comes to DEI. But I like to focus on what's going right. I like to lead from a place of inspiration rather than fear. So I look for stories of what's going right and I put them in a newsletter called Five Things that goes out every Saturday morning, sharing good vibes in DEI. And then on Mondays, I'm joined by a special guest right here on LinkedIn Live to share those stories with you. So today I'd like to welcome Daniel Downer. Welcome back to Five Things, Daniel.
Hi, Bernadette. Thank you for having me.
Nice to see you again. Daniel, you are one of our facilitators at Equality Institute, and we're
Yes,
so grateful to have you on the team.
so glad to be a part of the team.
So, folks who are joining, please feel free to ask questions, add comments throughout the chat today. If that would be helpful at all, we're happy to address your questions and comments that come in. But Daniel, let's get started. Last week, I had a conversation with my friend Latanya Wilkins, who's a coach. And one of the things she and I were talking about was psychological safety and really the role of managers and everyone, individual contributors as well, in checking in with the members of their team because there's a lot of trauma in the world, and certainly we saw that last week where there's always something going on where employees could be affected, whether it's something personal or something in the news nationally. There's a lot of different things which could be causing folks to struggle and be more distracted at work. Do you have any advice yourself on how to check in with people on your team and actually even people in your life, to see how they're doing? Like, what is sort of the best approach here? I'm
Yeah,
sure there's some do's and don'ts.
yeah, definitely. So, one of the things that I love to do with my staff is carving out time during our meetings to have check ins, just to see where the team is, how individuals are feeling. Also, blocking my schedule toward the end of the day just for individuals to come in and have a one-on-one check-in if need be. I think that really helps foster a culture of psychological safety where team members can feel that they can share, right? And that they can be have a place where they're able to kind of address some of the trauma that's been going on. So those are some of the do's that I do, as well as also carving out time just to experience joy. And
Mm.
so every month, my team and I we do a social activity, whether that's going to Applebee's or going to the park, just a way for us to get outside of our normal space and just not worry about anything and just enjoy one another and fellowship and have a lot of fun. And so I think those are some best practices that individuals can use to create and foster a culture of psychological safety.
And what is the outcome that you're seeing from this? Like, how does your team react?
Yeah, so definitely they're so appreciative of it. But we've also seen increased productivity. We've seen a decrease in burnout or feeling stressed or overwhelmed. And so I think that's important to realize that as you're creating these spaces for psychological safety, it'll also help with productivity and also with decreasing that burnout and that stress that team members may feel.
One thing that I have found on my team is folks who've come from previous work environments where they've had a lot of baggage. They've had a lot of managers who have been highly critical, haven't really created space for mistakes.
Mm.
And so there's fear. I have been told by several of my team that they're afraid of me being that way, me being critical or me not allowing room for mistakes just because of their previous work experiences. And so when I come to them with questions like, "What's your rosebud thorn for this week?" or you know, how are you feeling today in 2 words? It was jarring at first because they weren't used to being given permission to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting for me as a leader, kind of seeing how everyone brings their own experiences and perspectives to this work and to how they need to be managed.
Yes.
So we all have to kind of meet people where they're at. All right, so let's move on to those good vibes. So speaking of corporate social responsibility, which I mentioned in the intro, the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas just gave all 5,000 of their employees $5,000 bonus checks. Every single one received $5,000, which totals, by the way, $27 million worth of bonus checks, something that we don't hear a lot of, especially when it comes to frontline employees. Frontline employees are often ignored. They tend to be left out of these conversations, overlooked, undervalued, underpaid. And a lot of frontline employees are BIPOC folks. So I love this story.
Yeah, long overdue,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely a step in the right direction. And I think, once again, creating that culture and that space where employees feel valued and feel seen. So kudos to the Cosmopolitan on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. And, I think long overdue sort of describes a lot of the things we talk about here on Five Things.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. I mean, most of the silver linings I find and the stories I find are, in fact, long overdue, but they should be celebrated anyway because we can build momentum with these wins for sure. And I love that these employees are being cared for in this way. All right, next up is the 2022 Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Very, very diverse this year, more diverse than ever before, wide variety of backgrounds, body types, just seeing lots of different kinds of representation in the models beyond the cover models who are well known, like Kim Kardashian, I believe, is a cover model. So we're seeing, some celebrities on the covers, but actually a lot of different types of diversity within the models themselves. And this stuff really does matter.
Yeah, I loved how there was such a spectrum of various body types, of racial and ethnic backgrounds, of different ages. I believe one of the cover models is of a more mature age, and so I think that's really important as we think about the shift of where folks are wanting to see a lot of themselves, right, in models and representation. And so kudos to Sports Illustrated for this. There was such a good blend, I felt, that they had within this class of models that was really, really great, and I was really happy to see that.
Yeah, I agree. And the cover model that you're referring to, who's a little bit more mature, is in fact Elon Musk's mother, who's been a model apparently for 50 years or so. But she rocks it. She
Yeah.
absolutely rocks it. And these models are stunning. And I think that it's just really important to represent this kind of diversity. It's creates possibility models. And yeah, there's a lot of ways to be beautiful.
And I also thought it was what I also found interesting as I was going through all of them, how each and every one of them had like a specific do good cause,
Hmm.
right? That they were behind. Some it was body positivity. For others, it was diversity and inclusion. For others, it was I want to say it was around just mind health. So it was really, really good to see that each of them, while they were diverse, also had a diverse, fluid spectrum of causes that they were behind as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's really important because it allows folks the readers to figure out who they align with and how they can give back and find their own way to get involved, right? There should be a call to action. Okay, next story. Goldman Sachs, don't not a company I don't talk about often in Five Things. But I do really like this move because it sets a precedent for Wall Street in general. Beginning next year, employees will be senior staff will be able to take unlimited vacation. Not so unusual, but employees are required beginning next year to take 3 weeks off each year. So a mandatory 3 weeks vacation, including at least 1 week of consecutive time off for all employees. So mandatory vacation time in an industry where employees are known to be overworked and I guess overpaid, but but certainly overworked. And I think it sets a really nice precedent for Wall Street.
Yeah, that this has been a conversation that's been happening in Wall Street for a while, where employees have said, "Oh, we're being overworked, long work hours, not enough time for self-care." And so I think that this is a good move by Goldman Sachs, by really prioritizing and allowing individuals the time that they need in order to just unplug.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, we know that there are some companies that completely close for various weeks during the year, and that's one thing. But to say to employees, hey, you are required to take off a full consecutive week, at least once a year, I think is a completely different standard.
Yeah.
And, it does take, I think, at least a week for me, at least, to really settle into vacation. I don't, and I actually don't often get away for more than that.
Yeah.
Which means that my vacations aren't aren't always so relaxing. I need to be better at that myself. But anyway, I think this is a really great standard, and I can't wait to see the ripple effect of this. All right, next up is from Microsoft, which has reinvented the mouse for people with disabilities. So they have made the computer mouse more accessible by creating a design that's very modular and adaptable. So folks with tremors can have a more useful, and it can actually use the mouse, and it sort of has different flaps and adjustments and ways you can sort of move pieces in and out to accommodate for a variety of disabilities and ways you use your hand, lefty versus righty even. And so it's a really inclusive product design, which I think is really special. And we don't see these types of product designs unless there's diversity on the team that's creating it, right?
Yeah, shout out to Microsoft. I know that they've been doing this for a while, making sure that a lot of their software and equipment is very much accessible to individuals. And so I think that this is just amazing and taking it to the next level. And so hopefully other tech entities, and I would just say entities in general, will pay attention to this. A lot of times when we talk about diversity and inclusion, it also includes accessibility, right? That sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. And so I really enjoyed reading about how Microsoft is making sure that their equipment and software is more accessible.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I do think that the A is often left off, and I think it's important to include it. We talk about products for people with disabilities or ads for people with disabilities pretty regularly here in the show. But what I appreciate, I mean, I can't relate. I don't personally need this stuff, but I think it reminds me how much I don't know, right? And I think that it's just a really important reminder to keep learning and keep sort of being aware of our own gaps and why diversity is so important, because we're not always going to have all the answers. I talked on a previous show how I got called out on social media on LinkedIn, justifiably so, because our Equality Institute LinkedIn post didn't have alt text or image descriptions for the images. So this just happened very recently. And we're all still learning, right? And so it just keep going, and I'm very impressed with Microsoft. All right, the last story for the day comes from Walmart, which is in 5 Things 2 weeks in a row now. Pretty cool, Walmart. This story is about creating a fast track program for employees to become store managers. So a little bit of backstory is that Walmart does pay 100% of college tuition for employees. So for college grads, you do have to be a college grad. They can offer their employees this college to career program, which provides training, mentorship, and hands-on experience that fast tracks these employees into store manager positions, which pay an average of $210,000. So it's about creating wealth, creating greater diversity at higher levels of Walmart. Good stuff.
Yeah, really good stuff. You know, we talk about how uh, as you go higher up in positions, how diversity goes down, and so I think this is a great opportunity that Walmart is taking advantage of to increase the diversity on its management level. And I think this is also once again how you we talk about like equity. This is a good
Yeah.
example again of equity, how you're looking at those various nuances and really making sure that individuals are being able to have not only an equal opportunity but an equal opportunity to wealth.
Yeah, exactly, and it's giving them a leg up. It's
Yeah.
creating opportunities that they might not have had before, and yeah, it absolutely, it is equitable. This is the perfect example of equity. All right, so thank you all for watching. Daniel, thank you so much for
Thank
being here
you.
today. Folks who are watching, I hope that some of these stories have inspired you and hope you think, "Oh, wow, we should try that at my company." That's my goal is I just want you to think once a week, we should try something like that. It's easy. We provide the inspiration and we leave it to you to take action. So if you don't already get the 5 Things newsletter, subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. See you next week. Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks. Bye.